Welcome to Ramblings of a Madman series. Haven't done this in a while. Time to ruffle some feathers. This has become a major talking point that I wasn't even aware of until the first impression video when people started saying they are boycotting the game because of political agendas present in the sequel. After playing through the game and investing over 140 hours into it, it's time to assess the wokeness level of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Regarding the game's quality, I don't think there should be any questions. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is at least great, at least. Anyone not seeing that is not capable of judging games fairly, and to be honest, that's the majority from all the comments I've seen on my channel since its inception, and that's coming from a channel where there's more people than usual capable of critical thinking. Don't even want to know what a shit show other channels have to deal with. One person even called me a paid shill for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 review. I wish, because I'd still make the same review video even if I was paid, and due to being paid I wouldn't have a grand total of 20 euros in my wallet desperately waiting for a new below average paycheck. I'm honest. Way too honest, according to some, because I stopped caring. I don't cater to viewers, political parties, agendas and whatever else. Only thing I care for on this channel is to help people with guides and to assess games in the fairest way that I know. That's it. Quality of games is my concern. I love video games and want them to be at their best. So in order to participate in this conversation, watch the video in its entirety to understand where I'm coming from, you hectic bastards. For me, any politics is bad. Doesn't matter if it's right, left, up, down or center. Politics serves only one group of people. Politicians and everyone else connected to the purpose of brainwashing people. In order for politics to win, someone has to lose. That's us, the little people. Not dwarves. Citizens, that's what I meant. Can't profit without someone else losing something in the process. So how do we lose? Ridiculous taxes, organized crime backed by politicians controlling everything, price surges, stricter laws, loss of freedom for the sake of agenda-based movements, and what is one of the most important social strategies in modern time, divide and conquer. Purpose is to destroy any sort of unity, which is long gone now. People can't even have unity in video games, let alone in real life. Simply, they've won. We lost. We haven't learned anything from history. We are not smarter. Actually, with all the information available, we have become even dumber because emotions are at the forefront of everything. That is one of the goals of the ruling elite. Make people emotional about everything because the easiest way to control is through emotions. Why do you think outrage is so frequent today? Rational people wouldn't allow that so easily, and that is why they have no place in popular media. Why am I preaching this? Because I actually respect people that are willing to vote with their wallets to fight the unnecessary political agendas in games. Screwing with the creative freedom by having unnecessary agendas inserted is never a good thing, because if it's not an original vision, it can only be detrimental to every form of media in regards to the quality of a product. In simple terms, it's not just the creator's product anymore. Have you been wondering why there's such a huge political push in the last 10 years or so in all forms of media by inserting politically inclined ideas? Because politics has taken everything they could and made it political. Every event, every random occurrence, every little thing where they could insert themselves to politicize the topic in order to create chasm between people due to easy emotional control through trigger words and outrage. Think of a topic in your head, any topic. Does your head go into political waters eventually? Can't even freely think and talk about anything anymore because there is going to be some political connotation. I have an idea why such a huge political push has been happening in media and entertainment. Not saying I'm right here, but it fits the political power cycle. It's a process that big investors are trying out for some time now across the board. They are losing at the moment because people have started to vote with their wallets. It's the only vote that counts. You really think that countries are controlled by elections and voting? You really think they are going to let something so big be influenced by a local fool that is drinking every day in front of 7-Eleven? The only thing that matters is profit. So how to maximize the profit? Through ideological consumerism. Not an easy thing to achieve, but that is why big investor groups like Vanguard and many others highly influential ones are spreading themselves across all the Western entertainment media for one purpose. To inject as many agenda-driven things to as many products as possible. Spread it like wildfire. Why? To get as many consumers as possible into a giant consumerist bubble where people would support the products just because they are in the same ideological group regardless of the product quality. There's already a social political push that has been active for some time now in the world, which helps in getting attached to ideological consumerism. Idea of such consumerism sounds impossible, right? How do you think socialism has gained so much ground in the USA? During and after the Cold War, Russians have infiltrated colleges and politics, shaping young minds for the USA to destroy themselves from the inside due to default installed hatred towards socialism by the politicians. Ultimate goal being civil war and the destruction of the economy. That process of installing socialism in the USA lasted for more than 40 or 50 years to become successful, which it obviously is. Question is how long and how successful is this push for ideological consumerism going to be? That's just an extension of the already successful social process. Well, profits are going to dictate because no one is willing to lose it all, but they are prepared to lose a little bit for the ultimate goal. So voting with the wallet works, but investors so far can easily offset the losses for companies that are having trouble selling their products, though how long can that last? For example, Dragon Age Veilguard is going to get some sales from the woke crowd regardless of the fact that quality-wise the game is bad. Don't even have to be a gamer to buy the game with such a political reputation. Maybe buy it for your kids so they play it instead, right? Point is to support the ideology. That crap of a game sold over 1.5 million copies. That's ridiculously high for such shit. Yeah, they expected 10 million because they had to tell that to the investors, I guess, so that they would get the funding. Also, the bigger the anti-woke crowd reaction is, the more the woke crowd is going to support the product. It's a win-win, or so they thought, because no one has infinite resources. It's not over yet because the ideological consumerism process can take decades. They need to make all the politically inflated topics and agendas pushed into as many products and shown through as much media and entertainment as possible in order for such an ideology to become normal. By normal, I mean that nothing should be even questioned or spoken against anymore. They are aiming to become the majority so that supporting ideological products becomes a normality without even thinking twice about it. Everyone associated with the process wins. Politicians pushing those same agendas get better support from gamers, investors get guaranteed customers regardless of the product quality, and supporters get some sense of purpose. If it becomes normal, then it becomes a huge issue. That hasn't happened yet, thankfully. So putting Musa and gay options in KCD2 is to rile up the folk so that anti-woke crowd gets pissed off, while few new woke customers buy it to show their support, while the casual gamer is going to hear about KCD2 and maybe buy it because they heard about the game. Free marketing next to ideological consumerism. It's not that gay options and Musa are horrendous or affect the game negatively in any way, but it gets people going. Emotional control, remember? In KCD2, it's a very interesting problem because the game is quality stuff, no matter what anyone says. But there are certain things that scream DEI. My thoughts on DEI and DSG are that it's pure evil, based on segregation and racism policies by labeling people and assigning arbitrary values. I am firmly against any sort of nonsense like that because it's not fair and just deepens the lack of unity problem by making people look at others superficially rather than through the content of their character. Let's look at Musa of Mali, a fictional in-game character based on Mansa Musa, a king of Mali, and Ibn Battuta, sorry for pronunciation, an Arab scholar and explorer. They both lived and died in the 14th century before the events in KCD2. It's a strange insertion in a game that uses real historical figures, right? Well, there are characters like Istvan Tot that I couldn't find at all in history, so he seems to be fictional as well. Guessing a couple others too. That gives a bit of leeway to introducing fictional characters like Musa of Mali. If developers truly wanted to insert this character based on the legendary Mali Empire king and the famous explorer that visited Mali at that time because they admired these historical figures, it shouldn't create so much problems. But inspiration doesn't seem to be the reason behind something to put it in. Instead, it seems forced. Let me explain. If it was a true historical figure that really was at the time in Bohemia, no one would mind at all, and no one could say a word against it. They wouldn't have to be historically accurate, like participating in the war on Sigismund's side, but just to be in Bohemia at that time would be enough, and it wouldn't be even considered an inclusion because it would have been a fact. Istvan Tot, for example, has much more sense to be in this game based on his background, even though he is fictional too. Now compare Thoth's inclusion with his background to fictional Musa of Mali, an African Muslim in a fully white Catholic country who is based on real people that weren't even close to regions where KCD2 events took place. Also, timeline-wise, they were already dead. Seems pretty forced inclusion, right? Then the conversation happened, and this is what riled people more than anything, most likely.
Where is this Mali? And what's it like?
Similar to your country, yet completely different. You mine silver, we gold. But in our country, it would never happen that we allow foreigners into our mines. Overall, it is safer in our country. Nobody will waylay you on your journey. And we treat women with greater respect and set great store by learning.
Well, it's not all that bad here, though, is it?
I admit that there are some things I envy you for. Like what you can do with stone.
Musa starts to preach about his Kingdom of Mali, a place that seems unrealistic. I did a bit of research on the Kingdom of Mali at the time, and it seems that they really were advanced in some ways. Mostly in tolerance, believe it or not. They continued teachings and scientific progression of Rome and Greece, and they were open-minded to different cultures and religions. Truly a golden era of Mali. Went to shit quickly after in the 15th century, but before that it seemed like it truly was a special kingdom. That is why Musa calls Bohemia barbarians compared to them. In my honest opinion, that's a bit harsh, like they haven't had wars in Africa. I do think that overall there were way too many wars in human history that cost way too many lives for the sake of nobility and many incapable kings, monarchs, leaders and whatnot, but that's not exclusive to Europe. Another thing is when Musa said how great women are treated in Mali. This seems like modern talking put into the game. At that time period no one was treated great unless they were part of nobility. Ordinary people were mostly treated like they were worth nothing. Men were cannon fodder for wars and depressingly overworked. Women were stud mares that had to be housewives because men were either at wars or being overworked to death at times somewhere. I'm sure there are levels to how miserable the existence was back then for the ordinary people. It was better somewhere and it was worse elsewhere. Overall, what can we conclude about Musa? It's definitely a DEI character. Hard to debate against that after putting couple facts together. On the other hand, Musa is such a minor part of the game that it doesn't drag the game down by any means. It can be a bit annoying because there's a time and place for everything, and Musa seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time in KCD2. Outside of all of that, he isn't a badly written character or anything like that, but isn't well written either. In my opinion, KCD2 would benefit more, but not by much, if Musa wasn't in the game or at least have an option to kill him off, because he doesn't really add anything. They could have put anyone else that isn't so different to everyone at Bohemia to fulfill that role. Did my experience suffer because of Musa? No. Rolled my eyes at what he said once, maybe twice, but overall Musa didn't affect my experience in any significant way outside of those few eye rolls. Now we get to the gay part. First of all, my take on sex and romance in games is that it's a terrible idea that adds nothing. Instead of sex and romancing, I always prefer proper friendships, like the ones between Hans and Henry if there wasn't a romance option. It's a typical male friendship, more or less, but with added romance option. For me personally, that sullies the whole relationship because it gives a potential ulterior motive, which is to bed the other person. What is this obsession with sex and romance in RPGs, I don't understand. Nonetheless, let's look at it from a different perspective. Fact of the matter is that gay relationships have existed since humanity itself, or maybe at least from ancient Greece onwards. That's a fact that can't be disputed, so gay relationships in Bohemia existed without any doubt. Mostly hidden, of course, because culture of the time didn't allow that sort of thing, as far as I know. Though I don't think that's what people are pushing against. It's more because Warhorse has said that Henry is straight when KCD1 released, but now he is bisexual basically with options to be strictly straight or gay. Strange? Maybe, maybe not. People change over time, that means they can develop new preferences. So maybe Vavra and the team have changed their original vision of Henry and decided to give him a gay option. Or maybe investors gave Vavra and the team an ultimatum to include such things so that the funding is secure. Maybe both are true, maybe neither is. Also, there seem to be couple gays and bisexuals in the game. Hans, Black Bartosz, someone somewhere mentioned Captain Thomas is gay too, but I'm not sure about that. Potentially weird relationship between Eric and Istvan that might not be sexual as it wasn't clarified, but has some weird vibes. And the only gay character I actually cared about that has a great story, which is herbalist Barnaby. In my opinion, Barnaby has a great story about his preferences and why he was chased out of many villages. Now living alone and doesn't want to go amongst the peasants anymore. That is a properly told story that I connected with, and the only properly written gay stuff in the game in my opinion. Maybe there are other gay characters too, but can't recall any instances at the moment. So when adding these things up, there might be too much of that stuff in a game about medieval Bohemia, at least so out in the open. Conclusion is that it could be pushing the agenda, or it could be just a vision that changed over time. It's unfortunate that gays have been degraded to be a forefront of the political agendas when most, I'm sure, don't want to have any association with that. That's what I'm saying about politics. They will take everything and anything and use it as a weapon to serve them. No approval needed. I've heard somewhere that after Henry romances Hans that NPCs start to react differently to Henry. If that is the case, that's great, because it would be consistent for the time period and one of the most realistic added gay options ever. I couldn't find anything to confirm that, so if someone in the comment section can put more clarification on that, it would be highly appreciated. A viewer posted in the Discord that some people have been complaining about the lack of churches in the game. Wasn't counting how many are in the first region, but in the second region there's about 4 or 5 churches on 10 to 11 villages, so that point is mute. Not every village had a church, that would be ridiculous. Interesting thing, now that I think about it, is that I don't recall I could enter any of the churches in the game. That's strange if it's true, but going to need confirmation on the entry possibility or lack thereof. Seems that developers have responded to fans attacking them with new code of conduct and forum bans. I'm a big proponent of free speech, so to me moderating any talk is not something I can endorse. Unless someone is being overly abusive without any intellectual context to add at least something to the topic of conversation. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has unfortunately become a focus on culture war instead of a focus on quality game design. In my mind, gaming quality is above everything, and these potentially controversial things didn't bother me because of how great the game is. That doesn't mean I don't see the point of boycotting KCD2 because it clearly changed its original vision a bit. Problem is that it's difficult to ascertain how much of it is done by the Warhorse team and how much of it has been pushed by the investors. So who are we boycotting in the end? In the end, depends on the player. I respect people boycotting DEI and ESG products, even if it's minimal and in a high quality product. For KCD2, it's not an easy decision to make. If you're willing to stay on the principle of not supporting any, even minimal DEI, ESG stuff regardless of the product, that's great. If you are about gaming quality, then not supporting KCD2 is hurting a great game, a type of a game that is rarely seen on this level. Difficult topic and very difficult text to write so that it sounds coherent. Hopefully it does. If you managed to get through the whole video, thank you very much for listening. It's not easy doing these videos because of the guaranteed backlash, but some things need to be said and I never want to hold back on anything. So thank you again and check out the description if you'd like for Patreon, subscribe, star and merch.